Good day, Philippines! Mayong adlaw, Negros Oriental, and welcome to another edition of FlexiEd, or Flexible Learning Experience in Education, brought to you by the Department of Education, Division of Negros Oriental. I'm back. This is Leia, and I'll be your host for today's episode. Yesterday, we talked about organizational health, brought to you by Mr. Joel Serad, and that was a very fruitful discussion. Today, we're going to go into an insightful topic all about matters of faith and faith. So let's jump right in with our speaker for today. Allow me to introduce him to you. Our speaker is the senior partner of PRAXIS Associates Philippines. With his long-time involvement in public service, he had the opportunity to establish and develop linkages and good relationships with clients and partner agencies and organizations. Assisting public officials, non-government organizations, and private individuals is his way of advancing causes and making an impact in various industries and fields. He received his degree on Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from the University of the Philippines Visayas Tacloban College. Likewise, he was one of the Philippine Youth Ambassadors during the 38th Ship of Southeast Asian Youth Program, or SSEAYP, a diplomatic and cultural exchange program for the youth of Japan and ASEAN region. He has been through a vast experience in leading groups, making him more adept in both oral and written communications. The natural mentor and writer in him inspired him to serve as a lecturer of political science in Leyte Normal University and as an opinion columnist and contributor at a weekly newspaper in Tacloban City called the Tribune. He also has a column on Manila Standard that comes out every Monday, and the name of that column is The Fifth Gospel. Being able to involve himself in group management, strategic planning, and facilitation skills, Jude has developed into an effective promoter of community development and different social advocacies. Through his experience in political party operations, political consultancy, strategic positioning, team building workshops, and election campaign management, it molded him to become the perfect author for Politicking, a manual for political campaigns, published by Publicus Asia Incorporated in January 2016. Because of his full schedule, he makes sure that he grabs free time to sleep, which we all want to do. He also considers himself as a lifetime learner. He loves to read and watch movies with his beautiful wife, who is equally as busy as him. To talk about matters of faith and faith, dear teachers, here is the Chief Strategy Officer of PRAXIS Associates Philippines, Chief Political Affairs Officer of Tingog Party List, and the National Treasurer of the Junior Chamber International Philippines, Mr. Jude Avorque Acidre. Hello, sir.
Hello, Leia. Mayong buntag, mayong buntag sa tanan nga nagatanaw sa ato karong buntag.
Sir, kumusta man mo diha? Naa ka karon sa Leyte, sir, no?
Na ako diri sa Manila karon because I work in Congress actually.
Mm-hmm. So, kumusta? How are you dealing with all this craziness due to the pandemic, sir? How are you and your wife?
Well, my wife is based in Bangkok, she's still there. So, LDR yun di kayo karon.
Daghan jud kay LDR karon, sir.
But so we've been, it's pag ingani na gani mga panahon na murag mo start na lang kay count sa imong blessings ba nga.
Bitaw gid, sir.
Sa kadaghan sa uban, di ba?
Mo lagi, sir, you focus on the blessings, yeah.
What's about? You focus on the bright side, on the bright spots of life.
Yes, sir. That's why very timely, good in yung topic, sir. This one, matters of faith and faith. And we're looking forward, gayon, sir. And we're very honored that you are with us this morning. So please take it away.
Mayong buntag sa inyong tanan. More than 7 years ago, Typhoon Haiyan, the strongest typhoon in recorded human history, struck our home city, Tacloban, and its surrounding environs. Tens of thousands lost their lives. Hundreds of millions worth of livelihood and properties were all destroyed in an instant. That very moment, we thought life as we knew it was lost forever. And for many months after the typhoon, there was this group of Buddhists called Chuchi Foundation who had been helping us recover from the typhoon. They've been distributing relief goods, even cash assistance, providing emergency employment, and setting up temporary shelters. And it was just about Christmas, November man tong hayan, no? Just about Christmas when this group of Buddhists went to visit our parish church in Tacloban. And much to the surprise of our parish priest, they offered to help repair the damaged church building. Such a gesture from a people of a different faith really surprised us. So intrigued, the parish priest asked them, "What made you decide to help rebuild our church?" And they replied in not so many words. These past months, we've learned how important their faith is to these people who survived the typhoon. If we help repair the church, we know it will not only fortify their faith in God, it will strengthen their faith in themselves. You know, friends, if at the start of this year we already knew the disasters, the calamities, and the crises that were to happen in 2020, I sometimes wonder if we would still be greeting each other a Happy New Year. It's already August, and I have both good and bad news for everyone. The good news is we're already past half the year, and 4 more months to go. Then 2020 is over. The bad news is it's already past half the year, and in 4 months, 2020 will be over. But going back to January, we all hope for the best in 2020. We never expected any of the problems and the pandemic that later on happened. The letter to the Hebrews, chapter 11, verse 1, puts it beautifully. Quote, "Faith is being sure of what we hope for. It is being certain of what we do not see." Unquote. That, my friends, is faith. The confidence in what we hope for. The certainty of things unknown. Fast forward to August 2020, this realization is even more powerful as it was at the beginning of this year. Perhaps many of you seeing the pandemic and the poverty, the destruction and the depression around us, many of us have asked ourselves again and again, why is this happening? And many of us perhaps believe life will never be the same again. Maybe they are right. After this pandemic, we will never be the same again. And the bigger question is, will we remain strong in our faith, or shall we resign ourselves to our fate? But what difference will it make by keeping the faith or mindlessly accepting our fate? Ignatius of Loyola taught us about the two forces in our lives. The first that brings us closer to God, and the other that turns us away from Him. In other words, there is the one that brings out the best in us, or the other that makes us the worst versions of ourselves. That, my friends, is exactly what makes keeping the faith different from mindlessly accepting our faith. Faith is to believe things will be better. Faith, on the other hand, is to let things be as they are. Faith crisis, like all things, will come to pass, while faith is worrying what will be left of us when things will come to pass. These days, these very uncertain days, it is difficult not to be afraid or be scared of what's happening, and much more of what is bound to happen. It's easy to be paranoid or worried about getting sick or infected. It's easy to doubt ourselves, others, and even God. In the height of the pandemic in Italy, Pope Francis invited the whole world to prayer. He stood alone in the middle of an empty St. Peter's Square. The familiar crowds of pilgrims were nowhere to be found. For me, that was a powerful image of faith. The darkness spoke of the uncertainty that has overtaken our lives, the rain, our pain, the silence, our grief. But the Pope stood there unperturbed, and the world prayed with him. It was a strong reminder that no matter how rich or poor you are, or what language you spoke, or the color of your skin, we were all part of a suffering human family, united in prayer, together in faith. And the same things may be said about our lives now. There's uncertainty, there's pain, and there's grief. We have become so used living secure lives, being certain about what's going to happen tomorrow, about having these comforts in our lives, which takes away every minute convenience. We are all used to being in a rush, thinking of how to succeed, how to earn more, how to win more, and how to gain more. Then all of a sudden, the winning, the rushing, the certainty, the convenience is no more. Classes will open in a week's time or 2 weeks' time. But we will not be meeting friends and teachers in our school. We will be learning from our homes. You see, teachers, we all know well what it means to have faith in others. For every child who comes to school, a teacher sees only the possibilities of what he or she can do, potentials of what he or she can be. All a teacher thinks is what a child can achieve, despite knowing that somewhere along the way there will be life-changing challenges, difficulties, and influences. But teachers choose to put faith, to place their faith in us, in their students, instead of simply leaving them, instead of leaving us to whatever fate life would bring us. But we ask ourselves, what does it really mean to face the reality of our faith or be comforted by the certainty of our faith? 3 things. Faith is to see better, to know better what matters more and what matters most. In that reflection during his prayer, the prayer when Pope Francis invited the whole world to prayer, he called this crisis, this pandemic, not a time of God's judgment, but a time of our own judgment, a time of our own choosing. And it is a time to choose to be and do good, to help and uplift others, the weak, the sick, and those who suffer, even when others do not, even when others will not. But don't get me wrong, faith is not simply letting God be in control. It's not like watching God take over our lives. It is allowing God to work through our choices. This crisis is an opportunity to share, by our words, our thoughts, and actions, the goodness we see in faith, so that we are inspired to move from crisis to growth and bring us away from fear into hope. Faith is not like sitting in the passenger seat and making life one pathetic excursion. Faith is taking the driver's seat and holding on to the steering wheel of life. So we keep going in faith. We keep the faith. In sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, even when we've lost everything, faith is the one thing that can never, ever be taken away from us. So how do we live this faith in a time of crisis? First, is to build our capacity to give the best of us. Because crisis or not, we can never be too poor to give, to have nothing to give. We can never be too poor to have nothing to give, be it an affirming word, a gentle gesture, or a cheerful smile. Second, our capacity to believe. Because even if we do not know what the future holds for us, we know that we have a family who loves us and we have friends around us. And whatever we have to deal with in the future, we will never be alone. Lastly, our capacity to live. Because the misery and the pain that we have to contend with are reminders of how our personal gains and successes are truly worth, and how our lives are made even more richer and meaningful because of them. So to have faith is to give, to believe, and to live. And that is exactly what I think is happening during this pandemic. Despite their limitations, many have learned to give. Even when uncertain, they keep going and believe. Even in the face of a death of a family member or friend, or despite the difficult struggle every day, they still keep the conscious choice to wake up and live. Faith is to continue to give. And I know, but this is what inspired many of our medical frontliners to risk their health and safety so that the sick and the infected may be cared for. Faith is to continue to believe. And that is what encourages those upon whose shoulders the burdens of community leadership are entrusted. And faith is to continue to live. And I think that is what comforts a parent who has lost a child, a spouse who has lost a husband or a wife, or a child, his or her parent or brother or sister, or a friend or coworker. That we who are left behind in this world, in this life, have yet to continue living. Of course, for Christians, faith is the certainty that 2,000 years ago, Jesus embraced pain and death. And doing so, he understood their suffering and accompanied his friends in the most intimate of ways. In other words, Jesus knew the world of illness and pain. Jesus then understands the fears and worries that we have today. Jesus knows us because he himself experienced all these things. Now, as never before, we have learned what it means to give without counting, to believe without doubting, and to live moving through this crisis together with God's help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Jude. There were so many key points that I find very inspiring in what you just shared this morning. I never really looked at faith in that way. Pero if you look back into history, people who really survived yung kanang mga grabe kaayo nga mga panghitabo like the Holocaust or Nelson Mandela being imprisoned 27 years in Robben Island. I think ang pinaka-common nila is faith. And you said that faith, that's why the Buddhists helped the church, helped rebuild the church in Leyte, was because it does not only fortify the people's relationship with the Lord, but it strengthens the belief in them that they can surpass after the effect of Hayan. They can surpass all the challenges and the loss because of that event. You also said something, I didn't get the verse, but I did get what you said po, na faith is being sure of what we hope for, and there is certainty of things even that are unknown. I felt like that was very beautiful also po. And one more thing that I really liked, Sir Jude, was when you said, in order for us to live out faith, we have to build our capacity to give, to believe, and to live. And as teachers, I feel that that's a very important lesson to impart to our students. And the pandemic is a perfect teaching moment to live out faith, not only as a teacher, but as a person, for the students also, that they are inspired to continue with their education despite the challenges of the pandemic. So sir, salamat kaayo sa inyong sharing karon, and I'm sure the teachers are touched by the points that you raised this morning. So sir, palihog lang if you have like a final message that you can leave us before you go.
Thank you, Leah. No, one of the things that people tend to feel that having faith is out of their reach is because it's very natural to doubt, diba? In the face of all these things happening around us, it's almost instinctive in us to have doubt. But there is a powerful line that I've read many years ago that says, the primary criteria for faith is doubt. Because doubt gives us that space for faith to work in our lives. If we were so certain about what's going to happen tomorrow, or we're very sure of what will our lives turn out to be, then I don't think there's any need for faith. That is faith, F-A-T-E. But having doubt is leaving that enough space for God to work His wonders. And as I said, faith is not just letting God take control and magtanaw na lang ta sa iyong gibuhat. It's about letting God work through our choices. And whether this pandemic will bring out the best or the worst in us, it's not just about what God will let things happen, but how we will let things be. And that's why the message is to give, to believe, and to live. Salamat kayo.
Salamat kayo, Sir Jude. And that was it, dear teachers. I hope you were inspired as I was inspired this morning. Let's try to change our mindset from faith-centered to faith with a TH-centered, because it allows us to see better and turn crisis into growth, fear into hope. This is Teacher Leah saying, have a wonderful day ahead.